Nice to have you here, Allison. You're a CPA. You're actually my CPA. And so, what I've been trying to do was have discussions with different business owners and kind of learn more about their business and different nuggets that other people might find valuable. So, can you just explain for people that don't know you a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. Yeah. My name is Allyson Sawtelle. I have been a CPA in North Carolina since 1995. My career has spanned about 35 plus years at this point, and I've been in various industries and various jobs within accounting. My most recent change is I have started my own CPA practice. I retired from being in industry and manufacturing as a controller for about 13 years prior to starting this. It's the second time I built a CPA practice. I did have one back in the 2000s, and I sold it in 2008. But this practice, I plan to work as long as I can, as long as I'm physically and mentally able to work. I'm planning to work in my practice. I'm liking that I'm meeting great people and great clients like you and trying to help them achieve their goals. So it's a good fit for me at this stage of my life, and I'm very excited about what I'm able to do for my clients and for myself as well.
That's awesome. One of the things that made me go with you was you are kind of a smaller operation, but that allows you to be like more customized to each individual that you work with. And can you just explain your outlook for what the practice is going to be?
Sure. It's, if you will, it's like a boutique firm. These people sometimes call it that. So I'm trying to have less clients but more quality time. I call it the Jerry Maguire theory. If you've seen the Jerry Maguire movie, you know his mantra or mission statement at the beginning of the movie that got him fired from his job was less clients, more quality. That's where I am. I want to help my clients. I want to be their partner in their success, and insert myself and my services wherever they may need me, whether it be bookkeeping, payroll, all the way to management consulting. Of course, tax is part of the services I provide, but I just want to help them achieve their goals. And that means spending quality time with them and getting involved in their business and understanding their industry and their business. So that's the type of clientele I'm looking for, those that want to partner with me to guide their success and have me very involved in their business.
I think a lot of small businesses or, businesses that don't already have your services, they think they can do it themselves. And can you just explain some of the maybe telltale signs for when
Mhm.
somebody should reach out to move from handling it in their own QuickBooks to actually hiring a professional?
What I see a lot is clients do not understand because they're working to their strengths and they're doing their thing, but they might not have the accounting and financial acumen to know, for instance, what's the difference between my profit? I'm showing I have a profit from my business, yet I have no cash in the bank. And why is that? So those are the types of things I can help them understand by looking at a cash flow statement and looking at how, if you have receivables, if you're collecting them slow, that's going to affect your cash. If you're paying your payables really quickly, that's going to affect your cash. If you're buying assets, there's a lot of things that factor into why I don't have cash versus why I have a net profit. So that's one thing. If you have questions, you don't understand things, if you um, heaven forbid, if you're not reconciling your bank statement every month. I've walked into situations like that more often than you would think. So you really have no handle on how you're doing. You may be doing QuickBooks, but you're not really using it to its potential or even part of its potential. If you have tax issues, if you owe taxes every April and you're not planning for that all year, making estimated payments, all those things, just to give you that peace of mind and that person to add onto your team as like an outsourced CFO, if you will, that will help you to manage your business, not let it manage you.
Yeah, and I think in your proposals that you send out, like you explain kind of what you would be paying to have an employee versus
Right.
what it costs to have you. And I think a lot of businesses, that's one of the things is they're not even sure about like how much it's going to cost to have that handled for them. And it definitely is a net savings to not hire somebody specifically for that job,
Hmm.
especially if you're not going to be able to keep them busy. So a lot of smaller businesses and people that don't need that kind of overhead, it makes a lot more sense to work with a company like yours. Like my big thing that I involved you with was sales tax, because in my industry, a lot of people aren't charging sales tax, but from my research, I kind of figured out that I was supposed to, and you kind of helped me go through that. Are there other bottlenecks that have been kind of like a domino that falls that people decide to reach out to afterwards? Like, what other keys are there
Hmm.
to saying like, okay, yeah, I need to enlist the help of an accountant?
Yeah. Interestingly enough, your sales tax issue was one of three I've had this year. In 2018, there was a Supreme Court case where sales tax began to be charged across state lines. Online retailers needed to start charging sales tax if they had what's called an economic nexus, as opposed to what used to be a physical nexus. So I've had two clients that had actual economic nexus that needed to start remitting sales tax to different states, and we're not doing it, so I've helped navigate those waters with them. I've had a client earlier this year came to me that hadn't reconciled a bank statement in 2 years.
Can you explain what reconciling a bank statement is?
Sure. So reconciling a bank statement is you take the statement from your bank, you can get it offline. Everybody does their banking online these days. So you pull your bank statement offline and you compare it to your record source, which may be QuickBooks or it may be a manual ledger you keep, manual checkbook, if you will, and you make sure those two things reconcile. So if you have any outstanding checks or deposits that for some reason didn't get credited to your account, you have a handle on that. So yeah, so reconciling your bank statement is like the first order of bookkeeping to make sure the very first step is reconciling your bank statement. There's a lot of other things for bookkeeping that need to be done too.
How complicated is that process
It's not that complicated,
for you?
especially now with like QuickBooks Online and other online products. They kind of have a bank feed that automatically pulls those transactions in and even matches them up for you. So you're almost reconciling daily or at the moment with if you use QuickBooks to its fullest potential.
What would be your suggestion for somebody that is either unhappy with their current accounting situation or they're handling it themselves? What would be some suggestions you'd have to get them in line?
I would say they need to reach out and do some interviews with some accountants or CPAs and just find a good fit for them. I'm because I am being pretty selective about the clientele I take on. Not everyone I talk to is going to be a good fit for me, and likewise, not everybody that talks to me is going to think I'm a good fit for them. So, just do some interviews. Tell them your pain points. The main purpose of what I do should be solving your pain points and then helping you reach your goals. So I would say reach out. Don't hesitate. Do it now. Don't keep putting it off because it's probably just going to get worse if you put it off.
So there's two other things that I really want to cover with you. The one is talking about, don't wait. Most people wait until it's an absolute pain and it's
Crisis.
right at tax season and all that stuff, and that's when you're the busiest, right? So you can't even
Right.
really take on.
Can't take the time to handhold them at that point as much. So yeah, now is the time.
One other thing that I wanted to discuss with you is kind of the ability for you to help a business like actually like forecast and plan out for the next couple years.
Mhm.
You have a lot of tools in your arsenal. Can you just explain a little bit about what your abilities are
Mhm.
in helping a business not only just handle what is currently happening, but looking to the future?
Right. So historically, accountants have been thought of and CPAs have been thought of as historic record keepers and tax return preparers. So you're dealing with the past. So what I'm trying to do with clients is yes, we deal with the past and we get that straightened up if there are issues. But then let's look to the future. Let's do forecasting and budgeting. Let's set some goals. Let's look at some key performance indicators, KPIs, and even compare to benchmarks in your industry. So I have a wonderful software called Fathom that ties into QuickBooks and ties into another software called Zero that's good for accounting. And it takes your data from those accounting portals and puts it into a system that can do cash flow forecasting and can look at your KPIs and can look at if you move the needle one way or the other, what it does to your cash flow. I think cash flow is what you need to focus on as a small business first, then you can look at some of the other dynamics.
So if you were giving advice to somebody out there that is in a situation other than just interviewing different accountants, like Say they don't have the ability to do that right now. What should they focus on for themselves currently?
I would say make sure, do the major things. Do the bank reconciliations. Make sure you're on top of your accounts receivable. You don't have accounts straggling, 90 days or more. Get on top of that. Go ahead and get on some kind of a software. QuickBooks is pretty inexpensive as far as if you go ahead and use that monthly, you can get in as low as 30 some dollars a month at the simplest level. So most small business should be able to afford something like that. Just get everything in order. And then when you can, reach out to an accounting professional to help you more.
So one of the things that me and you discussed was what my company was organized as. And so when I came to you, it was an LLC, and through your advice and everything, we're talking about changing the way it's structured. But do a lot of businesses kind of fall into that category?
Right. The choice of entity consideration is a very important one when you're starting a small business, or even if you already have your small business, looking at it, making sure the choice you have is the right one. First, most people start out as sole proprietorships and they don't formalize any type of a legal entity. And they do that for a while just to make sure it's a good fit. And that's not a bad idea. Make sure it's not just a hobby that you're going to pick up, for a few years and then let go. But then usually the first step businesses take to incorporate or legalize their business is to become an LLC, limited liability company. And that's a good idea because it separates the personal liability of the business and you personally. So you have that barrier between, so people shouldn't be able to sue you personally if something happens with the business. And then the next step, once that LLC starts making some profits, then you need to look at maybe an S corporation tax entity, which you're still an LLC, but you're doing what's called a check the box to be an S corporation. And the purpose of that is to save some self-employment taxes. As a self-employed person, you're going to pay 15.3% tax on your net profit. And that turns out to be a significant amount of money, as you can imagine. That's on top of your federal and state income tax. So the S-Corp kind of divides a reasonable salary or compensation for the owner and then a distribution which is not subject to that 15% extra tax. So that's a good tax strategy that I recommend. And then there are some clients that a C corporation is the best status. Not usually for small businesses, but some certain instances it is. So those are the main choice of entity considerations for someone starting out or trying to make a decision as the best path forward.
So I know that technically you can't give like advice to everybody, but in that situation, like at what point is it kind of teetering on, hey, we need to look at this? Like, because I know there are a few like breakpoints where it doesn't make sense to be a LLC anymore, and it makes sense
Yeah.
to move to S corp. Like, is there like a general consensus on like where a business needs to
Yeah,
be?
I'd say between $50 and $100,000, somewhere in that ballpark. You should start looking at maybe moving to a different, if you're an LLC, maybe moving to an S corp status to get some savings.
And that's on net profit.
Yeah, on
So
their
that's
net.
after all your expenses and everything,
Right.
other than paying yourself, right? Or
Well, as an LLC, generally you're not paying yourself. You're just paying tax on the entire net income.
so anything over your actual like write-offs,
Yeah,
everything above that. So
right.
if you're looking at 50 to a
50
75
to
for the,
100-ish. Yeah, it's time to start looking at maybe a different strategy to help you out for some self-employment tax. But then you got to also look at the Social Security aspect, which I'm also a registered Social Security analyst, so that's something else you have to kind of balance.
yeah, there's a lot of things that go into the
Yeah,
financials of running a business that
sure.
yeah, I'm not I'm not specialized in, and that's why I'm happy to have you as my accountant.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad to have you as my client.
Well, I really appreciate you being on today. If anybody's looking to contact you, what's the easiest ways to get in touch with you?
Yeah, if you visit my website, that is sawtellecpa.com. And on there, you can find a lot of free information, good resources, lots of little tidbits about starting a business, different types of business organization, be it S Corps, partnerships, C corporations, sole proprietorships, tax advice, buying vehicles. There's a lot of good information just on the website. And you can find my email on my website if you choose to reach out to me that way. And then my phone number is 336 655-2700.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Dylan. I appreciate you having me on today.